Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Alrighty guys, so for any of you out there who, along with being psychedelic and plant medicine proponents, would also describe yourselves as health nuts, boy do I have a surprise for you. Today's guest on the show is a man who has made a career out of being the certified health nut, and in addition, has been an avid voice and proponent behind the conscious consumption of plant medicines for healing, awakening, and transformation. In this episode, we dive into an epic riff about his early years in the psychedelic scene, getting caught with LSD, his experiences with Ibogaine, and so much more. So please, help me in welcoming my man Troy Casey to the show. Troy Casey, my man, I am so excited to have you here with me, man. I feel like we've been planning this for quite a while now, and I'm so pumped to have you on to charge each other's batteries. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. I love your spirit. You're always high vibe.
Oh, thanks, man. And for any listeners that can't see Troy's shirt, gratitude is his attitude, and it's the attitude of the day. So, big, great shirt to wear, man. Game recognized game.
I gotta remind myself, bro, because I get caught up in my own stuff, you know?
Oh, 100%. You know, it's like, you know, I think that's one of the best parts about the world, right? Is that no matter how much work we've done, intention we've set, you know, we can still be humbled by like, wow, okay, there's like a certain season going on in the stars or whatever may be happening. And for everyone that I talk to right now, it's a pretty trying time, you know, and luckily for people like you and I, people listening to the show, we've done the work to be able to handle the big waves and be able to surf them. But man, are they scary sometimes. It's crazy.
Man, I'm definitely, yeah. I'm surfing the wave of consciousness.
Yeah, getting pitted on the wave of consciousness. I love that, man. Well, Troy, you know, where I would really love to start this episode, man, because I'm genuinely curious. You know, I've heard, you know, bits and pieces of your journey when we've connected before, but I'd love to figure out how this started. You know, I know you had a career in modeling before and all these things, but when did psychedelics come into your life and why did they come into your life? Like what was maybe the challenge going on in your life at that time, or maybe the high point that you decided to celebrate with psychedelics? Like, tell me how that journey of you entering the realm of psychedelic medicine started to take place.
Well, the psychedelic medicine aspect of it probably came on a little bit later in life. 2006 was the first time I went down to the Amazon. But I started utilizing psychedelics. LSD was the first thing that I utilized back when I was 14 years old. I was just talking to my mom recently, and, you know, I was in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco back in the 60s. She talked about they took a hit of acid and they went to the park one day. And she briefly just told that story. And so, and actually, when I used to do stand-up comedy, I used to have a joke that my parents used to put acid on my Fruit Loops.
Oh my God. That would be so on brand of that time and that place.
So, yeah, and people can see my stand-up comedy on the Sunset Strip at the Comedy Store. My very first video on YouTube. If you want to get a kick, go watch that video. And actually, I've got two videos, but you have to watch the first video. It's called Laughter is the Best Medicine. And that's my very first video on YouTube that I put up in 2006, I do believe. And then I put another set up there. It is Yerk from Uranus. And Yerk is spelled with a J, right? So Jerk from Uranus. And I spoke to one of my friends. She considers herself a walk-in from the Aurora Collective. Her name's Aurora. She's very interesting, alien type person. And she's here to, fend off AI with a stick, right? All the nano wetware. And she believes that, if it gets in our DNA and we become these antenna for the AI to travel through, it's detrimental to the rest of the universe. So she's here to challenge that and to save that. And so she said the two biggest things for AI, detrimental AI, because like we were discussing before, you have an AI program that helps you write your stuff. And I am here to call forth making AI our whipping boy, not the other way around. And so, and there's two forces that are guiding everything, yin and yang, masculine, feminine. And so catabolic, anabolic. So we can create the world that we desire. And so she said that the AI is not that intelligent or smart in the first place. It's kind of like a cockroach, she was saying. You know, you just can't get rid of them. They're intelligent enough to survive. But so what she said is unpredictability and humor. They don't fucking understand that shit. And so good. I got a qigong that I do. It's a drunken monkey, right? You don't know what's going to come out, you know? And so keep fucking with it. And so Jerk from Uranus or Yerk from Uranus is fucking perfect for that. So watch those 2 episodes, my first video on YouTube, and then find Yerk from Uranus.
Dude, that is hilarious, man. I never knew you did stand-up comedy, man. And especially at the Comedy Store, too. What an iconic location. I've never been there, but of course, listening to the Rogan for long enough, I've heard so many mentions of it and how many comedians got their start there. And it's amazing to know that, you know, you were in the Haight-Ashbury area, right? Like during that time, like what a profound time that must have been. I was born in 91, so I wasn't even a thought then. But, you know, at the same time, it's so cool because I think especially like connecting with psychedelics at a young age, right? Like in that area could be really wild. Like I'm curious for you, like what was taking LSD as a 14-year-old like? Because, you know, if you think about it this way, right? Like kids kind of are in a psychedelic trance, right? Now, 14, you're kind of coming out of it, but I imagine I could make a theory anyway that maybe it wasn't that different, right? Like maybe it actually was more like typically what you experienced as a kid. Because if you ever watch a kid when they're born and they start growing up, it's like watching someone come out of a very slow DMT trip. You know, they're shitting themselves, they're painting on walls, you know, like it's pretty accurate. So I'm curious what that was like for you at 14.
Well, it was very interesting, actually. And I'm going to bring some nostalgia back. So first of all, I think the first evening that I did it, I think I had some really big trouble at home. I think to the point where I think I peed my pants when my dad was after me. And I just hid in the bushes. And I think it was the very first time I ran away from home. And so I think it was like a Friday night. And then I hitchhiked up to where everybody was gathering. And somebody had a sheet of LSD. And I had never seen it before. And I was like, wow. And so we all got together and took it. And I went and stayed at my friend's house. And my friend, his mom was one of those moms that would either have a boyfriend and she'd be gone, or, you know, she just wasn't there. And he had pretty much run of the house. His sister was really hot and popular in high school. So she had all the, you know, older guys that had, you know, hot rods and stuff. And so we went over to his house and partied. And there was a show very much like Saturday Night Live. And you guys can look this up too. It was out of Canada, and it's where Michael Richards came from Seinfeld, right? So he was hilarious. And so, and the show was called Fridays, and Devo was on that night. Whip it good. Do, 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 do. And it was fucking trippy, man. And Michael Richards was playing with these little army men, and he was just being Michael Richards, fucking out there, right? And it was hilarious. So it wasn't really that much of a psychedelic trip. Later on, when I moved to Northern California, we would take mushrooms in the foothills of Marin County, and that was a beautiful experience, right? This was kind of more of like your acid trip, you know, with friends in a house. And then I remember one time I went out with this guy, William, Damn Boys. We used to call him Damn Girls. and so he had a moped. He had one of those Pook mopeds with the pedals on it. And at one point I got on it and I was like, wow, we're flying. And it's like great. And somehow it like ran out of gas or something. And then and you want to talk about like, it went from the height of the trip to like, oh, now we got to walk and push the thing. I was like, oh man, like buzzkill. But the brief time that we were just cruising and the wind was in my hair, and you know, it was probably fall time in Connecticut. And I just remember like, wow, this is so free and this is so awesome. And I've had electric bikes for the last 3 years since I moved to Arizona, and I am on them all the time. It's my main part of transport. And so there was something about that freedom that I really got in that experience. And it was a pretty powerful evening and good experience. And obviously with that type of drug, there was no hangover, which, I liked as well. And I was young, I was 14. And it was my first experience. And then soon after that, I don't know if I ever told you this, but my stepfather got busted by the FBI for hashish and other things, but he had like 60 pounds of hashish and he was dealing it, and he was looking at 5 to 35 years, in prison, and so he skipped the country. So I ran away for quite a while, quite a few times, and home life wasn't that great, but at that time the family was over, right? I was right after 14, 15 years old or so. And so they sent me out with some friends in Marin County, and lo and behold, they were dealing Sensimelia. This was back when Sensimelia was brand new, right? Sensimelia came out in the early 80s, and this was 1981, 1982. And so I ended up in Northern California, and people had mushrooms, and I had never taken the mushrooms. And I started experiencing that, and that was really groovy. And there was something else about Marin County in Northern California. I noticed a little bit more love in people's hearts. It was kind of interesting experience, because the East Coast can be pretty edgy, right? New Yorkers, Connecticut. I went to Boston one time, and everybody's like uptight. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's ridiculous. It's still like that now here.
And you're in Virginia?
I'm in Boston. Yeah, I'm in Boston.
Oh, you're in Boston. Yep. Well, you know what I'm talking about. I was born in New England, and I have that edge, and people, they don't understand. And people say, "Oh, New Yorkers are rude." Well, New Yorkers are pretty straight up. If you're straight up with them, they're going to be straight up with you. It's just that we've got a little bit of different energy. You ever see Gangs from New York? It's like, it's just like, are you going to fuck with me? You're going to be cool? What are you going to be? Because fucking let's get to it right now. It's like, and I have a little bit of that in my personality. So it was interesting being out in California and experiencing those psychedelics, and especially the mushrooms in the foothills. We would go out into the mountains, and we would just stay for hours, and it was very interesting and freeing being outside in the nature spirits, the nature energy. And so and I have to say that I wasn't doing it in a very sacred way. We were just exploring as kids. I didn't know anything about the sacred elements of it, so we would mix it with beer and smoking too, marijuana, and so it was just a party. But it did open me up to a different level of consciousness. And I took a lot of LSD at that time. I think in my teenage years, I probably did 300 journeys on LSD and mushrooms at a minimum. At one point, actually, because let me tell you the story, because this is a good story. At one point, I was selling acid at concerts. We had Bill Graham was the big promoter on the West Coast, and Journey and Iron Maiden, and I was into heavy metal there for a while, but there was still some like real rock and roll bands like Toto, Journey, and they would have what's called Day on the Green. You could probably look it up. They're probably on YouTube right now. I also went to the US Festival, which I think they paid the Clash $1 million. So David Lee Roth was like, I want $1 million. And then David Lee Roth got there, and he was just drunk on stage. I saw Ozzy. I saw, it was in the middle of the desert, way out in San Bernardino. So I would get a sheet of acid from the Haight-Ashbury, and I would go down there. I'd buy it for 90 cents, and I'd sell it for $3 to $5 or something like that. And I remember somebody, like, I don't know if they were security or just they were checking people, and he goes, "What do you got?" And I opened up my hand, and I had cash in it. The other hand had the sheet of acid, so I could have gotten popped right then and there. So eventually, a girlfriend that I was dating at the time, her dad got wind of this, and they did a whole investigation in the town that I lived in. And I got arrested in 1983. Thank God, when I was 17. I was incarcerated until I turned 18. So about 4.5 months, right in the summer. And so I got popped with a sheet of acid. I think they hit me up with intent to sell. And that was 1983. And that's how I survived as a kid, living on the streets or, staying at my friend's house or just winging it, right? As a teenager from 14 till 17, I became a ward of the state. And so they kept me in juvenile hall and they released me on my 18th birthday. And so some good lessons learned, because I probably would have done some serious prison time for that. Mm-hmm. And I think I also followed in the footsteps of my parents. I mean, marijuana is legal now. He had hashish, which is different, but it's legal now. He's been outside of the country for a long time. I put this all in my book, Ripped at 50. And so, or a lot of the stories are in my book. So that was just a powerful experience. It was pretty heartbreaking, and being incarcerated for all that time. But yeah, that's a bunch of my LSD stories.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. Dude, that is wild, man. Hearing about that time period too, right? I mean, you were calling out a lot of my favorite bands too. This hair didn't come out of nowhere, man, just like you. Like, I was raised a metalhead, and a rocker. And so, hearing about those times, man, is so amazing. I got to actually see the full Van Halen original lineup with David Lee Roth back in like 2005, I think, maybe 2004, at Mohegan Sun down in Connecticut. And it's funny what you were mentioning about the Northeast, because I always say I stick out like a sore thumb here, dude. Like, I get on calls to people and they're like, oh, let me guess, San Diego or Austin? I'm like, no, Boston, and they're like, what? And so it's been really funny, man, growing up here and being around so much of that hardened kind of colder nature. Mm-hmm. And then, being able to find amazing people like, my buddy Eddie, and a lot of the people I now go out to Check's house with a lot from here, and, being able to find those people. But at the same time, when I come out to California, life just makes sense. And I land in San Diego. When I first landed in San Diego, I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I get why everyone asks me if I'm from here. Like, this place makes sense. I make sense here, and I think it's because, like, I had this theory that when it comes to lost civilizations, the East Coast had Atlantis, right? Mm-hmm. On like in the ocean near us. And that was a very masculine dominant society, right? They ended up blowing themselves up because they went too deep into technology, right? Sounds kind of familiar. And then on the West Coast, we had Lemuria, which was very feminine. And obviously, like, California is Kali, and things like that. And so whenever I go to the West Coast, it's like that easygoing nature, right? There's still shit getting done, but, there's just like, you can kind of take a breath, like a sigh of relief, whereas the East Coast, it's like, traffic, getting me there right time. Oh my God, I got to be in a suit and tie, and it's cold half the year, and things like that. So it's been interesting, man, to like, travel around myself and see how, things are different in different areas. But I'm curious, like, did your stepdad ever come back to the country? Like, how does that work when someone leaves the country? Like, there's, I imagine, a statute on something like, hashish or whatever. It's probably like 7 years or something, but I'd love to nerd out on that for a second, just because I'm genuinely curious, if you're open to sharing.
Yeah. I bought my dad an electric bike, by the way, because I was like, Dad, you got to get one of these things.
And so those things are awesome, dude. The rad bikes, they're kick ass. Oh my God.
Yeah, I love them. So, I've had a bunch of them now, and so I sent him over some money to get some. He's still in exile, and I think one of his neighbors got uppity one time and tried to rat him out. I think he got ran by Interpol, and they didn't. There was nothing invested in him to send him back. And then his uncle is some kind of an attorney, or his uncle. They were always just like, you don't want to risk it. It's FBI. Years later, the FBI agent is gone or dead or whatever. And there's no real case on it. But he just didn't want to get flagged. And so he's just stayed over there 100% of the time. I'd love to ship him over here to see the children. And I've been over there a handful of times to visit him as well. But nope, he's been in exile for what is that, 41 years now, I think, or something. 1980,
Wow.
1982 or 1981, something like that.
Wow. That's wild, man. And yeah, I've always thought that was interesting. It's like, hey, not that hashish is I don't think of it as a drug, but let's just, for lack of a better term, it's like, hey, drugs can ruin your life. So we're going to arrest you and ruin your life. It's like a very interesting back and forth, and especially these days, like, of course, if you're selling heroin or cocaine, like, or something that's going to damage people potentially with fentanyl, like, yeah, okay, that's an issue, right? But things like hashish, it's like, especially these days, it's kind of like one of those things that I'm so grateful is now being looked at as like, hey, it's a plant, right? And, again, it's not that it can't be laced with things and things like that on the black market, but cannabis overall, we got bigger fish to fry, and so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what they thought of that. I totally get why he wouldn't want to risk it, though. He's like, I've been over here long enough. I've made a life. I'm good, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think, they are plants and they are fairly innocuous. And yeah, if you get caught up in smoking too much pot and burned out, like you can go nowhere in circles, or you could be Snoop Dogg, And so
yeah, exactly.
but it's fairly innocuous, especially when alcohol is free, or they can chemicalize the crap out of tobacco and cigarettes. Nicotine's extremely addictive, and that is not free, but available on the commercial market.
Yeah, legal.
And so, and then when it comes to fentanyl, they're busting all these guys that can't pay their bills and they're trying to feed their family from running drugs up across the border and this and that. And I don't agree with any of that. But if you look at the economy and how screwball it is, it's like Hunger Games. And then somebody posted, because they caught somebody up on the 17. It's a corridor that goes north here in Arizona from the border. We caught 10,000 tablets of fentanyl and shit. And I'm like, great, but those aren't the bad guys, right? The bad guys are the fucking people that hold the patent to that. How about that?
Exactly.
How about that? Let's, Oxycontin, these things have seriously ruined lives, ruined communities, and is ruining, the United States of America on many and different ways. Just because it's a high profiting corporation, a pharmaceutical company, doesn't mean that it's right at all. And actually, I think Purdue Pharma was sued and they had to pay out billions of dollars, but that doesn't really matter because they make billions. It's called collateral damage inside of a corporation like that. And so, things are really, really out of balance. And Oxycontin is at the cornerstone of that. And, I just had a client recently, and God bless his soul, but, he had some surgery, had some Oxycontin. Well, they did morphine in the surgery, right? Actually, I had my tooth worked on recently. I had surgery on my mouth. And after the second surgery, I turned to the nurse and said, "What did you give me?" And I was like, I felt great driving home and stuff like that. And then the second time I came back, I go, "What'd you give me?" And she goes, "Fentanyl." I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, wow. I mean, I could feel like I just had, no cares at all. I was I was out and then I woke up and then I was like, wow, life is fucking great, man. She's like, fentanyl. And so I can see how addicting that is. And, I remember when I was growing up in the 90s, we were in Miami and somebody brought down China White from New York, which is synthetic heroin, which is basically what Oxycontin is or fentanyl is right now. And you did too much, you're dead. And quite a few people died on Miami Beach back in the 90s when they did this. And so it was very interesting to witness. And I definitely partook in the situation. I was quite a bit of a party animal, and it was extremely powerful. But you do it for 1 or 2 or 3 days and you're hooked, and to get off of it, it's like 5 days of the flu. And so, very, very, very dangerous. And so, I've done a lot of exploration in my life, and I prefer to stay as sober as possible, as much as possible. I'm off caffeine currently. I've been chipping away at a decaf for the last month or so. And so, but earlier in the year, last time I was on the podcast, I hadn't smoked pot in a long time as a habit, every once in a while maybe. But during lockdown, my weed dealer, I got him on my my detoxification cleanse, and he was checking in. He was always coming by. Hey, here's an eighth, and I would be like, "What do you want me to do with this, dude?" And next thing you know, I started smoking, and I was doing spliffs for about 3 years there. And then, of course, I've got my vaporizer as well. But none of that helped, and it started building up in my tissues. December, I got off the marijuana, and then I think February I got off the tobacco, because I love tobacco. I love good tobacco.
Tobacco's great.
And then I did the Ibogaine, got off caffeine a little bit, did a dry fast, did the Ibogaine. And then I was back on the caffeine a little bit, but I just made the commitment that my nervous system, my healing, my refinement, my health as well, all of that stuff deserves to be, off caffeine. So right now, I'm razor sharp, baby. I'm sober. I'm doped up on the way of the world right now.
Dude, I love that, Troy. And it's so funny, man, because I'm working with Dr. Jason Ganzuk. Do you know him through Paul? Have you met him before? He's awesome, dude. He's my go-to for anything health related. He works with medicine as well, but he does, I'm on an HTMA protocol, hair test mineral analysis. And that has changed a lot in the last only 6 months I've been on it. And the last test I got back, he could see my sodium and potassium was like cranked. And he was like, okay, what are you doing for caffeine and things like that? I was like, well, I do a double shot of espresso in the morning. And I hadn't done it in so long. And when Rach and I moved in together, I had bought her an espresso machine. And so when we move in together, I'm like, oh, I love espresso. Like, I love coffee. I love the taste of it. But I'm already like, I have caffeine built into me is what I say. Like, and I forget it sometimes if I get into like a habit with coffee. So I hadn't done that in 8 years. I had been completely off caffeine, maybe like one a month or something like that with her. But then when we moved in together, it just became all too easy to be like, yeah, make me one too, And so then I got into this habit of having one double shot in the morning. And then I really enjoy kratom, right? Mm-hmm. For like podcasting, talking long days, things like that. So I would do like 1 or 2 grams of kratom, like very low amounts, but that was enough to tip the scales because I was already upregulated and really like force my sodium and potassium to get really out of whack. So Jason was like, hey, you got to cut everything out. So I did. And now I have, a little bit of cacao and some rasa tea in the morning with some adaptogens. And it's amazing. I throw some local honey in there and it's just beautiful, man. And I'm amazed at how much, yes, dude, you got it. Let's go. I'm amazed at how much better I feel. Now that it's been about 2 months, I'm back to 100% natural energy. I'm like back to that point of like, why would I ever need that? Like I will have a decaf probably once a month or something just because I love the taste of it. But, it's like overall, like I think it's wild how much natural energy, when you really get yourself on point, you really don't need anything. Like some days I'm going to bed and I'm still wired, and I'm just like, man, it's like crazy how much energy I have. How did I think I used to need that stuff? It was crazy. So yeah. Good to hear you're on the same train, man.
Yeah, I balanced out. I had night sweats for quite a few months. I think that was all the nicotine coming out of me, or maybe just detoxification of my lungs. But yeah, I feel so much better and so much more balanced. I gained 25 pounds, bro. Because I started smoking a little bit of weed actually when I was building for the book because I was running so thin. I was doing some hape, and hape takes all the xenoestrogens out of the body, so the testosterone really pops, right? So I was doing that, and also you don't want to eat; it kills parasites, fungus. Tobacco is a very powerful, awesome plant, right? It helps the mind get razor sharp, but nicotine's highly addicting, and so I was running thin during my whole ripped at 50 phase. And getting off of all of that stuff really helped me. And, think about it. When fighters lose weight, like Conor McGregor's almost 200 pounds now. He fought Aldo at 145. That's a lot of fucking weight, And so,
yeah, dude,
and he's like 5'9". I don't know, maybe he's like 180 or 175, but still, that's a lot of weight. And so I bounced right back. I've been in the gym. The other good thing about that is I got really focused on the gym, and I'm in Scottsdale right now. And that's like my one thing. I used to go to the beach, right? I used to go to the beach. I'd go to Air One. I'd go to Gold's Gym. And that was my thing. I need a social element. I really need that. So my whole thing is ride down to Whole Foods, go to the gym, So I'm in the gym every day. And, gratefully, all the muscle, all the tissues. I also pulled my groin in January, and that is a
Yikes.
gnarly injury. And so I just felt like I was all yogied out. I was real thin and sinewy and for just too long. So I started taking creatine as well, and that put a lot more water in my tissues. And I bounced back like a charm. And so I feel great right now.
Yeah, creatine's amazing. And I totally know what you mean. Like years ago, I got clean off cannabis for about 3 months to like reestablish the relationship in my life. And ever since then, I've been able to, connect with it once, twice per week. I've had periods where I go on vacation and sure I'll connect with it. But for me, the thing with cannabis was luckily, I never liked cannabis, never have for I'd say 4/5 of my day.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was always like that little nightcap that I would have to get into creative mode, play guitar, etc., and kind of just shift my being from work into relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was that, back when I was using it every night for that, I had no idea how to relax myself,
Mm-hmm.
and so I felt like I needed it. And that, you can't have a codependent relationship and a healthy relationship at the same time, and there was a lot that one relationship showed me about my whole life, right? Because how we do anything is how we do everything. And I was like, wow, where am I outsourcing my ability to relax, find comfort, etc.? And that was really what kickstarted the whole business I run now and everything. And it's been amazing. And, nicotine for sure is another one of those things that's the only thing right now that I'm currently still on is tobacco here and there. And it's amazing. There's so much beauty that tobacco can bring forth if it's clean tobacco, but tobacco has been just like cannabis is now having done to it. It's been bastardized, and they put pyroxene in there and all these things to make it so much more addicting than it already is. And, I tell everyone, if you're going to choose to connect with any of these medicines, with great power that they have comes great responsibility, and discipline can be challenging, because again, what happens when life gets aggressively hard, and you don't know how to provide those things for yourself. And so that's why I always tell everyone, you really don't even know what an altered state does unless you really know sobriety, because it's all polarity, And so for a lot of the people I work with, they're like, oh, well, why would I want to be sober? And I'm like, well, I mean, there's a million reasons, but number one, for me, it's you really can't really tap into a plant medicine and really understand its benefits and its power if you're doing it all the time, because that's your typical state now, right? Whereas if you have something like a dichotomy to compare it to, now you have a bigger gap, and within there, there are so many things that I love sobriety for: podcasting, coaching, etc. All my work I do 100% sober, right? And there are times where maybe Rachel and I are going to have some sex magic, and I'm like, cannabis will be great for this, And so there are times where when you've done enough work on yourself to be aware enough and be honest with yourself of where you're trying to cope and versus connect, you can have some beautiful relationships with these things. But I commend you, man, because the pandemic was hard for a lot of people. That was when I first started this whole like January of 2020 or December of 2019 was right when this whole thing happened. So it was funny. I went the opposite way, but I had been the other way for 10 years. So it was funny how a lot of people that I knew that weren't big cannabis users, well, what did they have to do then? The whole world shut down. They might not have had a community, depending on what their family believed. They might have believed the blue pill version of the story. So, again, it's very interesting how the last 3 years unfolded for many different reasons, many different reasons, but especially that as well. It's interesting.
Yeah. And for me, Ryan, to bring it back to the conversation of psychedelics, the Ibogaine, I think, really helped me because I've been camping a couple times. I've got a really good buddy, Special Forces Jim, Green Beret, and just a good guy, go to ecstatic dance. I've been to a couple camping events out here in the desert with him. He smokes like a chimney. And so, and there's the tobacco. There's plenty of tobacco, plenty of weed, plenty of everything. And typically, because I'm still going through some very challenging times, that was one of the things that I saw with Ibogaine. I did have a good breakthrough and I had some good feelings, but I got back from Mexico and all my problems were still here and it was fucking challenging. But I think the shift, whatever happened in my nervous system, whatever happened with the psychedelic medicinal aspect of that medicine really shifted my consciousness where I can deal with things a little bit better. I haven't really been challenged. I'm always working on refinement of my temperament. I think anger is a gift, but sometimes when it's out of balance, I've expressed a lot of imbalances with that over the years. And so I'm always looking at refining. And this is the way I grew up on the street. You know, it was my mouth. I didn't learn how to fight when I was younger. So my mouth would really just divide the line, right? There's the fucking line in the sand, motherfucker, right? And so, but now that, you know, I'm approaching 60, I'm realizing, you know, that's not the best, you know, language structure in business, in family. My ex-wife, that's the one thing that she just took, you know, will probably take to her grave, is that, you know, I raise my voice and I swear. And so for the last 3 years, I've had to really sit with myself, because whatever I've created in my life, I've had a handful of lawsuits. I've been, you know, I've been ripped off. Business relationships, I'm still working on it. I can't understand, Ryan, when I shell out thousands of dollars and motherfuckers don't deliver, right? I don't know the ninja wizard move on that one. Haven't figured that one out, you know? It's like, oh, fucking baseball bat your fucking teeth in. How about that, motherfucker? How's that for East Coast? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't mastered the calm Zen language when that goes down, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. What am I energetically, how am I magnetizing that? Right. So this has been my spirituality over the last couple of years. And, you know, how can I just refine my energy? You know, what am I creating? What is my magnetic attraction? And so, and how can I refine this? Because as I move into this next phase of my life, I choose to be that benevolent elder, right? The wise man. And so, where I can be of much greater service, calm, you know, and the Ibogaine definitely helped me refine that. And that's my experience with tobacco and camping with old Jimbo out there, because the tobacco's been there, and I'm just like, meh. And I love tobacco, you know, working in the Amazon all those years, and then partaking with the Hape up here as well. And I don't know if you ever saw that Netflix show I was on, but I bought a Hollywood pipe, fucking blowing fucking tobacco.
Oh my God.
Chad and JT go deep, these comedians.
I heard about that, but I didn't see that. That's back when you had the beard and the hair, right? And you were doing the sexual kung fu. You were doing the ball smacking.
Yeah.
I think I saw a clip from that.
Yeah. Everybody check that out. You know, Troy Casey, Certified Health Nuts on Netflix. It's Chad and JT go deep. It's episode 5, Stokers Unite. And I've got about I got about a 10-minute segment just basically doing Certified Health Nut stuff. You know, it was great, because I did comedy for years. I love comedy. I love to keep it, you know, up on that level, and to be invited on their show, I was just like, you know, so grateful, because these guys went to, they took some of my humor to the city council in Laguna Beach, and they're like, there's no place to butthole son, and so we're requesting this area over here. And then my compadre over here, Chad Kroger, will demonstrate. And he right in the courtroom or whatever that is, city council, he puts his butt up in the air, and it was funny. And Howard Stern got hip to it, and then they ended up getting a Netflix show. And yeah, I love those guys, and I love comedy. We got to keep it light. We got to keep it light and unpredictable.
100%. Dude, 100%. Laughter really is the best medicine. That's why I love that you named your first comedy thing on YouTube that, because that is something that I'm only now just really starting to refine in my life. And I grew up with a ton of kids. My parents' house was always the hangout house. I always had 10, 12 people around me. And, you know, we were all just like joke constantly. I mean, nothing was serious, like nothing. Even when times were serious, we could hold space for that, but like it wouldn't be too long before someone cracked a joke and changed the energy, right? And it took me years to realize, because when I got into the healing space, I ended up getting myself into a pickle. You know, this is one of my challenges that I've worked through or continue to work through. And if I look around at other people's experiences and I'm not going through what they're going through, I'm like, am I doing it wrong? Am I like not feeling my emotions? And I dreamt up this issue that I couldn't cry, right? That I couldn't access my emotions and I couldn't cry, which is like hysterical when I say it out loud. And so I remember I had a deep mushroom experience about 3 years ago. This is after I did training camp for the soul, which is like a deep inner child healing experience. And when I was there, they were trying to get me to access these memories, and I'm like trying to do it. And it just felt so like hysterical to me. Like, cause I was just like, I don't feel the charge, like around my father dying of cancer. He died in my arms, right? But I just don't have a charge there, right? And I was like, what is happening? Either I'm numb as hell, or I'm just like, I don't know, right? And so, because everyone there, they're screaming, they're crying, they're going through stuff, right? And I was kind of jealous. I was like, what the hell? Why don't I have anything like that in me, right? So then I do this mushroom experience, and it was not right after, about a week after I had done a 5-MeO DMT journey. And what I didn't know at that point that I now know is that 5-MeO can cause reactivations if you connect with medicines in the next like 8-week span. At least, again, the science is kind of sketchy on it. But I did this 10-gram tea with Rachel. And so it starts hitting us really hard. Like I start talking to the wall. I know I'm talking to the wall. Like, I'm like, I know this looks ridiculous, but this wall is alive to me, right? So I'm like cognizant enough to know like this is more than I thought it would be. And Rachel is stuck in what's called the waiting room, right? She just has a mantra that's repeating over and over. I don't know this though. I'm laying in bed. She's next to me, sitting up crisscross applesauce. I'm laying down, and she's muttering words under her breath. So to me, I thought she's doing cool witchy magic shit, like cool, like feminine magic stuff, right? So I start laughing, and I'm like having this dialogue with the universe. And then there's a certain point where I go, wow, laughter is a lot like crying. And as I say that, something starts shifting, and then I start crying, and I start like sob crying for like an hour. And during this time, Rachel's just sitting there. She's, from what it looks like, staring at me, just saying these words. And I'm telling her, like, every once in a while when I'd come out of like a heaving cry, I'm like, wow, this is like your power zone, Ray. Like, you're really helping me. And she's like, huh, what? Oh, yeah, sure. And then right back into muttering words, right? So after we come out of that experience, I tell her, I'm like, wow, like, you had this beautiful thing going on. Like, you moved this energy for me. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, like, you were like sitting there, you were watching me, like, you didn't even try to hug me, like, let me have my space. And she was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. She's like, I was stuck for like 3 hours in just this mantra, let go and trust, you can have whatever you want. And so it was funny because after that, I realized that I believe I transmute a lot of lower dense energy through laughter, right? So like I transmute it through an alchemical process. And so that's why I really believe this saying, laughter is the best medicine, goes around, right? It's kind of like an incomplete sentence, if you will. Like, it's the medicine for like the micro and macro traumas that we endure. And I think that's what comedy really is. It's about taking like these otherwise heavy subjects, triggering topics, etc., and reminding us like, hey, like, we're in this weird experience called life. We don't have to take it that seriously, right? Like, let's just allow the energy to move through us. And so I resonate with that a lot, man. It's really funny.
Well, it's fun. It's funny you say that, because that's the essence of Certified Health Nut, right? Because these are powerful times, right? They're poisoning the food, right? There's a lot of nefarious activities around slavery and the money supply and the banking and all that stuff. And so how can I present this in a way that I don't get Alex Jonesed in the world, right? And so how can you, kind of dog and pony show, or that was what the court jester was, the Joker, right? He could actually say things about the king without getting his head chopped off, right? Because he put it in the form of humor. And back to, the AI doesn't get it, man. The AI is not going to get it ever, right? Because that's the level of humor. And for sure, laughter and crying, it's right on the edge, right? It's the yin yang of the element, and it's emotion, and it can subjugate, right? Well, crying's more of a letting go. And so, and so is laughter. And so I keep everything as much as I can, because I can get into the negative ninny space, right? We've all seen Alex Jones get out of control, but he makes some very valid points. We see what's happening in the world, and then we act like, nah, and it's just like, well, wait a second, time out. Like Jordan Peterson has said, this neo-Marxism, this neo-fascism, hidden in the guise of the greater good. Well, wait a second. We have Mao Zedong. We have Joseph Stalin. We have Adolf Hitler. We have other people that have tried to control and manipulate the populace. And so this has happened before. This is the totalitarian tiptoe for the greater good. Whatever happened to freedom? Whatever happened to free speech? Whatever happened to freedom of expression? whatever happened to only one law, not this legal jargon or the tax code that's 9,000 pages long. You got to be a nerd to understand any of that stuff, so they can catch you in these loopholes. There's only one law. Don't tread on me. Or said another way, do no harm, take no fucking shit, right? We should be able to defend ourselves. And so we've just gotten completely out of balance. Like what I'm learning in business, you work so hard to turn on the cash flow. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, or any of the good books on finance, and you need cash flow. And so, and you work hard, and you manifest, and you can't have in the mind what you don't have in the hand. You have in the hand what you don't have in the mind first. And so you're manifesting, and you turn that money on, and then all of a sudden the thieves come out of the woodwork. You're like, no way. And then you talk to your lawyer, and your lawyer's like, welcome to the success club. I'm like, what the fuck is that bullshit? And so the world is kind of strange, and we're very out of balance. And I think it is part of this Hunger Games central banking element, right? If you don't think we're in the Hunger Games, just go into Los Angeles underneath any highway overpass, and you will see the Hunger Games. And a lot of those people, they were regular people like you and me until maybe they got into a car accident, or they got hurt at work, and then they got on Oxycontin, and then, or they lost their job and they were drinking too much. And then, this happened or that happened, or they got replaced by AI and they started drinking too much. And so all the people underneath the bridge, they are us, right? The homeless situation is all of our problem. We get to solve the solutions for humanity. Gaza Strip, Israel, Ukraine, all this stuff. This is all of us. The problem is there's some geopolitical nonsense going on. These divide and conquer elements, the Rwanda, if you ever saw Hotel Rwanda, who bought the machetes for both of those religious sects and turned them against each other? And they were chopping each other up, right? Who bought the machetes, right? And so we get caught up in this whole divide and conquer. And, we're living in a world right now where you can't have free speech anymore. And if you do, you're Alex Jones or, Kanye West. They took all his money away, right? JP Morgan took his money away. Anyways, we're getting a little far off of there, but psychedelics have definitely helped me see clearly over the years, open up my mind to what else is possible, not only mentally, emotionally, physically, but spiritually. Mainly, what's possible? What is the veil of illusion? What is really important? Well, what's really important is clean air, water, and soil. Those are what allow human beings to proliferate. And right now, those are threatened. And there's only 4 human needs. I've boiled everything down to first principle: water, food, shelter, and fire. Fire is now represented by these machines, right? The electricity is going through these machines. So it is part of the need. However, again, back to making AI our whipping boy, it's a machine. The human being, according to the Maori, who I've studied with for the last 25 years, the human being is the most technological advanced piece of equipment in the whole entire universe. Einstein said we're only using 5% of our brain. So what is possible? That is my big question. What is possible? While using humor to break up the fuckery, right? To break up the Mao Zedong, totalitarian tiptoe, and then the rest of the left, right political spectrum, like, nuh-uh, they're not lying to us. Whatever's on the news, that's reality. You're not paying attention to reality. Are you for killing babies? Huh? If you don't denounce this, then you are a baby killer.
Dude, it's so true, man. And I'm glad we're chatting about this because, one thing I've noticed, right, is that the news, all these things are a thirst trap, right? Like, it's not to say that things that are going on in the world aren't important, but the question becomes like, what are you going to do about it? Because if you're just watching the news and going on Instagram and making a stink and fighting with people and thinking that's doing you any good or doing anyone else any good, it's a complete falsehood. And at the same time, what we could actually do is get together as human beings and go, what do we do? Right. But the challenge is when we're so pitted against each other because we like different political parties, we like different sports teams, we believe in different things when it comes to XYZ, especially the last 3 years was a whole nother interesting thing that went on. So it's like, all these things put together, it makes sense why we're seeing a lot of challenge right now because humans are losing the ability to connect first with themselves, right? The most important connection you can have, right? Most people have no idea who they are, why they're here, where they come from, where they're going, what their purpose is, anything, right? Because they've been distracted so much throughout their life. The nervous system is so upregulated and they don't know what they don't know that they have no way of getting out of it unless they have an experience, right? Whether it's a deep meditation or a psychedelic experience, et cetera, that real quickly allows them to tap back into the bigger picture, right? And, that's one of the things too that my buddy Mark and I talk about, how they, whoever they are, there's a lot of pull towards victimization these days, right? Like, hey, you can't say that to me because I'm a victim, right? And that's one of the easiest ways to disempower yourself. Again, I've played the victim in the past, right? And at the end of the day, no one's going to come save the day for you. And also, like, if you're trying to get the external world to fit your internal demands, that's going to be really hard, right? Rather than becoming unfuckwithable from within and saying, hey, I believe in what I believe in. And so long as you're not trying to get me to do something that is against my will, go do whatever you're going to do, so long as it's not hurting anyone else, And that's why I love common law so much. It's like 3 laws. Don't kill anyone, don't steal anything, don't disturb the peace. It's like it was easy back then. And now that we have all the statutory nonsense and legalese and all this stuff, it's no wonder why, like you said, 9,000 page tax code, like that's ridiculous. I mean, there's almost any way they could find something you've done wrong because we're not meant to be calculators, right? We're meant to be, connecting under the stars and eating high quality food and drinking out of rivers and all the things that we really can't do anymore. And I'm not saying that technology is bad. Like, this is amazing that we get to do this, right? But it's clear to me that, we say a lot, we hear a lot in school. If you don't learn history, you're deemed to repeat it, right? But what's the tale of Atlantis? Oh, they were this really harmonious society. And then certain people started using the technology that allowed them to have this beautiful free energy system and everything. They started to get back down in the third dimensional consciousness. And they started to go, hey, that tribe over there looks different than us. We're going to now start preparing these energy weapons as weapons instead of just energy sources. And they ended up blowing up the entire continent and annihilating the planet, And so, who knows if that story is true, but the theory of it and the kind of like result of it, we're seeing happen over and over again throughout society. And that's why for me, just like you, it's like, I must infuse humor into this, not only for myself, but also like, it's just the best way I found to be able to go, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, but at the same time, right? Like, this is what we train for, and we chose to incarnate during this time, not for an easy mission, but for one that we knew was going to be playing the game on expert because we're big wave surfers. And that's what I tell everyone who's alive right now is that, like, you chose to incarnate during this time, whether you remember it or not, you're a bad motherfucker, So yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for reminding me because I have been caught up. I thought I was impervious. I really liked I really liked the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, wow, this is cool, and my business did really well, and everything was just kind of interesting during that time, and then. I got a handful of my own curveballs and a good taste of, really the messed upness that we have in the world. I lived in Sedona and there was a mayoral race there, and I got involved because my rent got raised 65% overnight. All my friends at the gym who are in their 60s and 70s, retired people, are pissed off because there's so much traffic, and the city council pimped it out to marketing companies in Los Angeles, and the ATVs are ripping up the desert. My friends that have farms out in the middle of the desert. And it's just like, my kids got evicted from a Sedona Unified School District building. So I interviewed all the mayor candidates, and this one guy who'd been in the city council and he was the vice mayor at the time. He's just like, well, I guess people can do it. It's like, wait a second, time out. I grew up in America. The kids get something happens to their school. Doesn't the 10,000 people in this very small town get together and have a bake sale and fucking get the kids in a fucking school? What are you, fucking stupid? It's just like, and then you go, hey, well, what's this ICLEI thing over here? The International Council on Environmental blah, blah, blah from the World Economic Forum that was baked in 2014. I don't know. Oh, were you on the city council at the time? Yep, doing the best I can. Yep, helping the people of Sedona. And come to find out, oh man, it got it got out of control, and I was glad to leave, that incestuous little small town. And I just keep praying for humanity. But, ultimately what I can say about all this, Ryan, is what I've discovered on my journey is the only thing we can do is really take care of ourselves. We want to change the world. We have to start with ourselves, take care of our own real estate, self-care education, knowledge of self. My whole university is called Knowledge of Self University. All knowledge is only knowledge of self. And so if we want to really take care of the world, we have to take care of ourselves. The body needs sleep. The body needs water. The body needs pure water. Otherwise, you're going to contaminate your liver and your kidneys and the organs that help the glands and everything secrete and function, right? The blood clean, etc. We are only as clean as the environment is clean. And we've trashed the environment with industrial waste, etc. So the more we can become aware, pure water, pure food, the body needs movement, right? The human beings are in symbiotic relationship, not only with the earth, but with each other. So it's a good idea to practice letting go, surrender, forgiveness, understanding, olive branch, golden rule to the other person as much as you can. Gratitude, right? These things can help us. Body needs sunlight. The body needs grounding. Otherwise, you're going to have inflammation. You're going to have you're not going to have the electron transfer that's necessary for the blood to flow freely. These are non-negotiables. These are fundamental principles. These are first principles, as they call them in physics. Can't have one without the other. And so that is the solution. The solution is for everyone to do and keep their side of the street clean. That's it.
Dude, truer words have never been spoken. Troy, this has been amazing, dude. I'm so excited to have you back on again. I love chatting with you, dude. I love getting my battery charged from you. I feel like we have a similar energy of just what? And I love it so much, man, because it's so true, man. If you can't laugh, you'll cry. And not that there's anything wrong with crying, right? But at the end of the day, I know which one I prefer. Not that I don't like crying, but if you can laugh about it, you can remind yourself okay, for whatever reason, this is all meant to happen. And it's just like in Star Wars, right? There had to be a negatively polarized, Sith Lord in order for Luke Skywalker to rise to his final destination, if you will, right? A final outcome or potential. And so that's how I see it. And, of course, it's really real, right? We're really alive. This isn't a video game, right? At least as we know, right? It's real. And so it sounds a lot easier than it actually is some days, right? I wake up some days too, and I just have that feeling in me, that anxiety. Some might say that dog in him, who knows, but at the end of the day, man, it's been amazing having you on. Where can people find out more about you? Where can they find Ripped at 50? Where can they find info on the new course you got coming out, which I am super excited to chat about? Tell the people where they can find you, man.
Yeah. Fitandfreelegacy.com. I have a new legacy mastermind. Fit and free. So you got freedom, right? Freedom's important. Medical freedom, health freedom. We've got financial freedom. We got pain freedom, stress freedom, and freedom, right? Freedom of speech, right? Iron sharpens iron. So it's a band of brothers. I'm creating an army, right? I work with women as well. This inaugural launch, and actually we're closing the doors for it today. So if you guys are listening, you guys can log on to the wait list for New Year's. We'll have another one. We're launching in New Year's, but fitandfreelegacy.com. So it's all about building your legacy. Once your heart's desire, your dream, your what you love to do, what your effortless genius is, what you love to do as a child, what you love to do in your heart, that art expression, do what you love and the money will follow. We don't have the training in that. So this is legacy training. What is it that you're here to imprint? Stand and be counted. You don't have to just sit down, shut up, consume, conform, and comply as you were trained for 12 years in your industrial age school system, unless you're a Waldorf child or went to a Steiner school. And so it's all about breaking free of the system, of the matrix, and understanding your own energetic body. So fitandfreelegacy.com is where my mastermind is, and you can get more information about me there. Ripped at 50, you can get this if you send us an Instagram message. We autograph these hardcover collector's editions that go out to anyone domestically. I don't know, shipping's really weird these days. I think it's $50 to ship it internationally, and the book's $37. If you send me a message on Instagram, we'll get that out to you. Otherwise, the paperback is available on Amazon.com. And so, but you want the collector's edition. Trust me.
It looks awesome.
Forward by Paul Chek. Yeah, that's the God code right there. It's not about me and my physique. It's really about what's possible as human beings.
Dude, I love that, Troy. Dude, thanks again for charging my battery. And I got one last question for you, Troy, and that is this, right? Let's say someone listens to this episode and they're extremely pumped to dive into psychedelic medicines in their own life. What is the one piece of advice you would suggest to them to allow them to use the proper discernment in choosing whether or not psychedelics are right for them in their lives?
Well, definitely get with someone that has gone down that path before, because it's not just the psychedelics. Psychedelics are only a certain percentage, maybe 50% of the work, maybe 30%. The bottom line is psychedelics can dissolve the veil of illusion and blow your mind. But if you don't have the ability to integrate it back into your life, like what I tell people, and I've been taking people down to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca for years. What I tell people is, don't quit your day job until you've, fully integrated the medicine, right? You can start working in that direction. You may need to get out of a relationship as well, but I wouldn't end a family just because you had visions of the angels and, hearing, angel trumpets and this, that, and the other thing. The fact of the matter is work with an integration specialist, someone that preferably is into holistic health. So they're going to address it mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And then you can start moving towards transforming your life. If you go home from your psychedelic experience in the Amazon or something and quit your job without having an exit plan, etc., you could, in 6 months, you could end up homeless. I expected the world to show up this way because I saw so much beauty, but it actually didn't. And now I'm in hell. Now I'm in a real hell. And so, work intelligently with the psychedelics. And it's good to blow your mind, but it's also good to have a plan, in this real world. Otherwise, you could end up on the street. And we've seen that before.
Yeah. It's like Paul always says from the Quaker branch of Christianity, pray and move your feet, right? It's great to sit with psychedelics, but also understand that there could be turmoil. You need to be able to navigate that space and be able to okay, cool. I saw these things. Let me make a plan to get out of my day job and these kind of things. Right. And so I think that's extremely sound advice. And guys, I had so much fun today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Troy is the man, always makes me laugh so much. If you guys enjoyed this episode, we would be so appreciative if you could give us a 5-star review. Helps us get the podcast out to more people around the world that are interested in psychedelic medicines. And until next time, ladies and gents, may the force be with you to infinity and beyond. Peace.